going to talk about spending in retirement, which I think is a timely topic, mainly because I hear from all of you that there are concerns about, am I spending the right amount? Am I spending too much? What should I be worried about when it comes to spending, and how we can give ourselves better permission to spend in retirement? So I'd like to say hello to PrairieFire Nation. I don't know if we're a nation. It feels like it to me because we've got so many great people that we've known for years that are part of the PrairieFire family. And so it's always just nice to say hello to everyone. So I just got back from Arizona Oasis Conference, which was Sanctuary's annual conference. I haven't always gone to all of these. I've skipped a few along the way, but we went back to Scottsdale. This is the hotel that Lisa and I got engaged in, that we had the conference at. And so it was kind of fun to go back and see that. But at the conference, I actually gave a short keynote on the origin story of PrairieFire. And I was very nervous, I'll be honest. It was a large crowd, over 500 people, main stage. The whole thing was very nervy. But I look forward to sharing with you. They're going to be working on some sort of replay that I can share with everybody. But many of you know the story of how PrairieFire came about, but it was fun to share that in Arizona with the crew. And I can't even tell you what it felt like to have all of that stress wash off of me after I was done. So I might have had a glass of wine or two after my presentation. So only Lisa knows the answer to that. Anyway, welcome everybody. I do have the chat open over here. So if you have any questions along the way, anything that is on your mind or you want more specifics, please drop it in there and I will be checking that along the way. But why don't we get into it? All right. So enjoying the retirement that you've earned without fear or guilt. I think a lot about this topic because I'm amazed when I look at all the retirement resources that we have out there. There are books, YouTube channels, podcasts, billions of different resources out there about how to live a good retirement life, how to retire with confidence, how to do the planning. A lot of the planning comes in before we retire. And then when we meet regularly with our clients, we discuss, are we still on track? Is our plan in place? Are we still finding a lot of success in the amount that we're spending? We've had really, really good markets the last number of years, and that can definitely make it a more confident feeling for sure. Most of you didn't have to retire in 2008 or 9, and many of you that were planning to probably made some changes. I remember some of my clients, when those markets were down substantially, they waited to retire. And while you're still working, it can give you a sense of confidence that it's okay, I can earn my way back. I can keep working and earning an income. But once you pulled that trigger and you're off on your own and retired and spending that money every month, it can feel a little arduous. It can feel like, am I going to be okay? Am I spending too much? What if something happens? Those kind of things. So it's really approaching this topic with an attitude of abundance and belief that it is going to work out. But I also want to show you some tools and things that we can do to help, put some math behind that and make sure that what we're doing is wise and makes sense. And even if we have a lot of market upset, can we adjust as a result of all that? And what can we do to build some buffers in place so I don't have to worry as much about the markets and those kind of things? All right. We have our very, very important disclosure you can see here. All right, so this transition, it can be very, very tricky. And like I said, there's a lot of resources out there about getting ready for retirement, how to save for retirement and plan for all those things. I use this book a lot. It's called the Retirement Planning Guidebook. I'm not necessarily recommending it. It's 500 pages and a lot of technical jargon. You can see all my little bookmarks along the way. But I was interested as I was getting ready for this to say, well, how much time does Wade, who's a PhD, is actually going to be speaking at the upcoming Financial Planning Association conference here in Iowa that I'm heading to in October. But I found on page 455 one paragraph about retirement spending. Ants and Grasshoppers is the name of it. My point is, there isn't as many resources out there as we probably expect when it comes to the spending conundrum and how do we spend in retirement. There's a lot of this fear of running out. For years, you've been saving, saving, saving. That's been the theme, the plan. I've got to get this money socked away. We saw all the retirement commercials back in the day that said, what's my number? How do I save enough to get retired, and whatever that number might be for you? And then, so we have that fear of running out. We also have that guilt then around spending when we do retire. Is I should have done all this beforehand, or what if I want to take a trip, or perhaps it's a family wedding, or you want to help out a grandchild or a child with a down payment. All those kind of things can cause a lot of angst and a lot of concern that I'm spending now and I don't have the income coming in. How do I get my hands around that mentally? So I want you to think about this in terms of that your money is out there to support your life. All right. So it's not the other way around. The money that you've saved up and built is there to sustain your lifestyle now that you're retired or you're thinking about retiring. So whether you're on this call and you're getting ready for what's next in retirement, you're thinking, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to move from saving to now seeing my assets, my Social Security, those things support my lifestyle in a way that I can still live the way that I want to? So I think what we need is a spending plan. And like I said, we've worked for years on saving plans. We need to be saving X amount. We need to be taking advantage of all the available plans like Roths and those kind of things to get ready. But we need to take our income plan, our spending plan, and then begin to break it apart. We usually know what our Social Security is going to look like. And for many of us, we can plan that number. And we haven't seen many changes to this. I know there are concerns about what's going to happen to Social Security. That's a topic for another day. But we can generally do some planning around what we expect it to be, and then we actually expect it to inflate then every year. From there, then we want to break down what we can count on for fixed income. And by that, I mean anything that you might have in pension and or invested in something like an annuity that will pay you over time. Now, many of you that have been working with me for years know that I'm not a huge annuity fan. And the reason that I've been not an annuity fan is generally because of the cost and the lack of transparency that are inside of those investments. In many cases, you can get a tax deferral from an annuity that was already available inside of an IRA wrapper, and you have to pay a mortality and expense fee, the internal investment fees, all those kind of things that then diminish the returns on your investment. I've changed my tune a little bit. I've found the annuity landscape, like all things in the financial marketplace, has evolved. And we are beginning to see many annuities that are available on a very low cost basis that can actually just have a small wrapper fee and then PrairieFire's fee attached to that without any extra things layered in there that come with many of these annuity contracts. And many of them are now offering guarantees where they can guarantee an income number for the entirety of your life, regardless of how long you live. They use their actuarial tables to do this. The world of pensions is long gone for many of us. Unless you're a government employee, maybe got lucky with an early principal or John Deere pension, we're just not seeing those anymore. Annuities can sometimes step in and be a replacement there. These are appropriate for folks that really, really want some safety in their retirement plan. They want to know how much Social Security is going to be, how much they can withdraw from this particular investment, and not have to deal with the whims of the markets. If the ups and downs of that are too much, an annuity can be a suitable replacement for part of your investments, for part of your plan. And so I'm open to conversations, of course, with any of you if there's a time and a place that would make sense. But as we're building in plans and I get to know our clients and I realize that the risk and changes in the markets get to be too much, sometimes these guaranteed contracts can add almost like your own little pension inside of your investment plan. And then, of course, the other part of our spending plan is investment withdrawals. And this is the part that gets a little vague because we don't know how investments are going to do. So what I purposely do in all of our planning is really forecast low returns. We've been able to get double digits over the last 3 years. That won't always be the case. We all remember 2022 when both stocks and bonds were down 15 to 20%. We easily remember COVID. And even though we regained all of that back, there was a lot of up and down there. And had a lot of conversations with clients about concerns of, is my investment plan going to sustain my lifestyle? So these three things combined can give us a good framework for how many times have I lived to a certain age and not run out of money? And we can show that to you clearly in our software, which does a lot of planning around many market dynamics, including horrible ones like the Depression and 2008. So together with these three components, we can build a good plan that you can walk off with confidence, knowing that this is going to work for me over time. I'm likely not going to run out of money, and I've got some buffers. And that's the big thing too, is where are the buffers in the event I want to do something special, or I want to spend a little more, want to take that trip, those kind of things. How we do this then is what I call guardrails. And I'm going to show you my screen here in a minute to talk about this in a little bit more detail. But the 4% rule has been something that's out there for a long time. And what it has said is basically you take your investment balance, multiply it times 4%, and that's how much you can count on your portfolio to produce on an annual basis that you can live on. Dividends, interest, a little bit of capital gain growth there. So it's a conservative metric that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But I would have you use this mentally to tell yourself, am I, based on my investment pool, the amount in there, if I'm taking 4% of that, is that is that going to be enough for me to retire with dignity? And that can be a number that we can use as a part of that spending plan. And again, this is just the investment pool, not Social Security or anything else that we're using for income. So that 4% rule can be a good, I find it is a really good mental framework to say, all right, if I've got $1 million and I'm spending 40,000 off of that, that $1 million can stay relatively intact for a very long time. And so that is how we can really, again, get a mental framework of, am I on the right track? So what I'd like to do is also show you a new tool that we're using that incorporates what I call guardrails and stress tests into your plan. All right, I'm going to put this away. All right, you should be seeing my screen here. And what this is showing is a sample plan of a retired household. And we've got a number of assumptions in here. But what this can do is we can take our current balance of our investments and say, all right, how much do I have in a taxable account, an IRA, a 401k, a little bit in CDs, and how much is in my house? How is that all then split apart? And what can I expect for an average return on that? In this case, we're saying 5.8%. And then the standard deviation is how much risk. So how much would we expect that portfolio to move in the middle of a portfolio crisis, for instance? And so here you can see about 50% in US stocks, 60% or 10%, excuse me, in international stocks, a little bit in bonds, about half. And so this is a typical, what we'll call a 60-40 portfolio that's out there. And so what we've determined is with this program and an average, a little bit at longer than average lifespan, that 18,000 a month is the spending capacity for this family. And so we break that apart as to where it comes from: Social Security, any pensions, any rental income, and then from the portfolio itself. So what this is going to do is take taxes into account. So we've got 18,000 in base expenses. We've got what we expect taxes to be, and then what our net income would look like in this scenario. And where that money is all going to come from. Is it Social Security, other income, or our portfolio withdrawals? And so what this is saying is that we can both plan for current spending capacity. If the markets were really to improve and our balances were to go up, we could spend more. And if the market was to substantially go down, we could plan for some income decreases as well. So if we're in here and we're saying, all right, 18,000 is the right number for my family based on what I'm living on. Currently, we can continue that and sustain that with a lower guardrail of the portfolio going down 24%, which would be 2.079 million. So just over about a $670,000 drawdown is what would be required before we would have to make an adjustment. And in this case, it would go from about 18,800 down about 5% to 17,861. So the nice thing with this then is we have a visual guardrail of what we can live on, what we can spend, and how that would work in the event of both market increases and market decreases. The other thing that we can do is move this around to say, Matt, there's no way I'm going to spend anywhere near that. Move me down to say 17,900. No problem. We do that, your upper guardrail gets decreased and you could spend more pretty easily if the markets go up, but you also have a much bigger buffer of almost 30% that it can go down before it would require any change in your retirement spending. So I find this to be a very, very helpful tool in getting us to a position where we can feel like we can spend enough without having to crimp on savings, crimp on things like that we didn't expect. Once again, having a good plan for where the money's going to come from and how that's going to work. Sorry, bear with me. I got too many things clicking around here. And again, it gives us a stress test. If there are a market dynamic that we didn't expect, what do we do as a result of that? How can we spend wisely as a result? Here's the thing that we talk about a lot with our clients, and I hear from all of you is the biggest concerns: healthcare and long-term care, any sort of big inflation shock, and of course, if the market was to change dramatically. Long-term care has long been a concern, and the costs of it are, definitely going up dramatically. So what we usually have the conversation around is whether we feel that you can self-insure based on the amount of assets that you have, or if we do want to put some sort of supplement in place, whether it be insurance. There are a number of annuities now that carry long-term care benefits, so you can actually invest the money and then have it set aside for an accelerated benefit if something was to happen on the long-term care side. Traditional long-term care insurance is really broken. You pay a long time, the premiums go up as you get older, and then when you need it, in many cases you quit paying because it's gotten to be too expensive. This is always a conversation we should continue to have and think about and how we can manage this. In many cases, combined with Social Security, other forms of income, we might find that self-insuring is going to be enough. But in many cases, it isn't. The other thing that we're also seeing is that the Medicare premiums that go along with our Medicare are also going up every year as well, especially if our income is higher than expected. All these need to be considered in conjunction. But once again, I think we lay out a plan, do the best that we can, and don't over concern ourselves with what might be, what could be versus what is, what we see today, what we can plan for, what we can't plan for, but then not allowing the concerns for these curveballs to change our behavior dramatically. Again, I want you to live with abundance while you're retired and hope and feel like there's a very good chance that it's going to work out, even if there is a curveball along the way. And these are just things that we have to plan for, talk about, but also find a way to, if it's extra insurance, if it is buffering your income with an annuity, whatever the case may be, to make you feel better, make you feel like, all right, I'm on the right path. This is going to work. Inflation, we haven't had to talk about for years until recently. So in 2022, a big inflation shock. There's a lot of concern now with how tariffs are going to filter through the economy and if inflation is going to come back. We've seen inflation for a number of years, still going on in healthcare, still going on with college costs, those kind of things. So it is always possible that there's an inflation shock. We've just gone through one and we survived. We were able to get through that and recover nicely. I have no reason to believe that that wouldn't be the case going forward. Market downturns are a reality. We've had over 70 plus corrections of over 10% over the last 50 years. They are a reality to being an investor. That's why we build in buffers where we can. That's why we diversify. That's why we're doing more and more with principal protected type investments, where even if there's a downturn, we can hold on to our value. Number of different things in the marketplace that continue to evolve to protect us from that. In all of these cases, it's essentially insurance. If we want protection in these areas, we have to pay for it through insurance, just like long-term care. Market insurance means we're insuring our returns, but we're also giving up a lot of upside or a portion of our upside. So all these things come with trade-offs that we have to be analyzed as part of our overall plan. As I mentioned, we can build in buffers. We can build in emergency funds. For a lot of folks that are getting retired, what I like to do is build a 3-year plan where we know exactly where the money is going to come from for the next 3 years that's safe. That can be in CDs, principal protected investments, some sort of bonds, annuities, whatever the case may be, where we've got 3 years locked in that no matter what happens in the world and the markets, we've got that money set aside ready for you to spend. And so from there, then we've got 3 to 7 years of money that we'll put in kind of a medium term mix. And that's then allowing for a little bit of investment growth over time, where we can allow that money to be invested and grow conservatively. And then longer term, we've got money in the market, and that's designed to beat inflation, to beat long-term care health needs, to get us to where we need to go. And the money that you've had in that section of your portfolio the last 3 to 5 years has done exceptionally well. So we just continue to rebalance for you, make sure those buckets are built properly, and that we have that emergency fund figured out. Insurance is another great way to build a buffer, and that could be through long-term care or any form of insurance that we need to always be discussing and figuring out what's going to be right for your family. And then with those guardrails, we've got that spending flexibility. More and more, I seem to be having conversations with all of you to spend more than you do, that you have the option you've saved this money, get out there and enjoy it, especially in those early years of retirement when you're feeling good and you're able to do that. I so firmly believe that that's got to be part of the plan to enjoy it. And yes, from time to time, you will see your balance go down. And yes, I understand if you're living on that balance, that's disheartening. But if you understand this buffer number, if you understand your lower guardrail, you should be able to spend with confidence and spend knowing that this is what you've worked for. This is why you worked, was to get to retirement and enjoy that. So don't hold yourself back. Ask us anytime to run a scenario that you want to see that says, is this going to work or isn't it? And we will be honest with you and tell you what's the right place. But know that in a lot of cases, you have a lot more spending flexibility than perhaps you think. All right, just a few things on taxes that we need to be thinking about because taxes can be a huge suck on a good retirement plan. We all know about required minimum distributions. What we need to always be looking at is what we forecast yours to be, especially later in life when it's not as likely that you're going to need them. So do we want to gift that money? Do we want to do something different with it? Do we want to convert it to a Roth IRA? Those type of planning discussions are very, very important. Based on your income, and especially when you're going to take your Social Security, we need to take a hard look at how those monies are going to be taxed. If you want to take your Social Security early and you're still working, they're going to ding you pretty hard. Perhaps deferring, perhaps finding some other resources to fill in those gaps, and deferring on Social Security is the right thing. I understand with health concerns, things like that, many people want to take it earlier than expected. Let us run scenarios for how that's going to work and what that's going to do to your taxes to make sure that we find the optimal claiming strategy for Social Security. And then, of course, Medicare premiums with the IRMA that can go up every year if your income's too high. So, fourth quarter, when we take a hard look at everybody's tax situation, capital gains and losses, we want to decide, do we need to be doing anything different? Because we don't want to throw you up into an IRMA class that's going to make that premium go up in that given year, if we can help it. There's some cases where it's unavoidable, but these are all things part of a tax planning strategy that's very important in retirement. Roth conversions are a great tool. They're not limited based on income. They will be taxed based on your bracket. If you take money from an IRA and convert it to a Roth, you will pay taxes on that today, ordinary income rates of whatever your bracket is now. That money then will grow tax-free from that point forward. You won't be required to take that money out any longer. It can sit there and grow tax-free to be used for something special if you want. But Roth dollars give you a lot of flexibility in retirement. We can work with you to find your bracket with you and your tax professional to find what's the right bracket for you. Do you need to take a little bit more from your tax-free bucket so as we don't throw you into that IRMA bucket, those kind of things. So once you're getting close to retirement, or you do, we might want to, in those early years, examine Roth conversions. Are they going to make sense? This is only applicable if we really feel like you're going to have a big required distribution later in life that you're not going to want or need to pay taxes on. We can start proactively dealing with that today. They're not for everyone. The more I've been working on these, we're finding in a lot of cases where they're not suitable, but in some cases they may be, and it's something that we want to explore. Charitable giving with the new tax bill has changed a little bit, but what didn't change is the ability to give out of your IRA directly to a charity and not pay tax on that money. So qualified charitable distributions, or abbreviated as QCDs. We're seeing these more and more in practice. Tons of our retirees are using these to give to charities they care about, not taking money out that they don't need, and feeling really good about the fact that they've saved and are able to benefit the charity. When the charity gets the QCD, it doesn't affect them at all. They take that and sell it and use it for whatever they need to use it for. So it's not as if they're getting dinged in some way by you doing it this way. They're used to it. They have them happen all the time. And as I've said, fourth quarter of the year, Lisa is an RMD QCD machine. All the abbreviations in our business, this is what she's working on all of fourth quarter. So we are happy to help develop a strategy, help process those for you, all of that. The other thing there is DAFs. It's an abbreviation for a donor advised fund. These are a way that you can give, that you can donate securities from a taxable account, avoid the capital gain, and give the money at your own discretion on your own timing to the charities of your choice. So we'll have a number that will gift a large amount in a given year so they can take the deduction in that tax year. They avoid the capital gain on whatever that security was, say Apple or Amazon or whatever it might be. And then at their discretion, they can give that money away. They don't have to give it all away that year. So many will make a lump sum donation to a donor advised fund and then give that away over a period of time. So getting ready for retirement, this can be a good strategy to say, I know I want to give later. I know I want to support my university, my church. I'm going to do that now while I've got this capital gain property and get to work on it. And then we're always working on your brackets, looking through as we go into year end. I'm not talking about the NCAA tournament. I'm talking about your tax brackets and getting those lined up so that we can protect you from any unforeseen challenges. We like to partner with all your tax professionals and CPAs on this as well, and just make sure that we're doing all that we can on the investment side to make your tax strategy as profitable as possible for you. The other thing then, as we're thinking about retirement, is legacy. And a lot of conversations lately about, should I be giving my money away now? Should I give my kids my money now? And one question I'd really have all of you ponder is, who do you want to get your money, and when do you want them to get it? So who do you want to receive your resources, and when would you like them to receive that? For many of us, we need to keep our resources tight for our own lifestyle. We don't want to have to be supported by our family. We want to take care of ourselves. I get that. We all want to see that happen in the best way possible. If it looks like you're going to have extra, it looks like you're not going to outspend your legacy dollars. Excuse me. We can absolutely have the conversation and model if you were to give some of it away now. Maybe it's in small portions, maybe it's in the form of stock, maybe it's something else that you want to give to them and wonder if it's going to impact the plan, if it's going to impact your ability to spend, is it going to knock you into that lower guardrail, those kind of things. And so those are good conversations to be having with your family. They're good conversations to have with us because there are so many ways to give both to your family and to charity that have a lot of tax advantages. A lot of people just end up writing a check for these things when there's a lot of better ways to do that. And we really want to be a resource for you with this. The other thing is passing down your values. And if you have a chance to give and share why you're giving that to them, or say, I'm going to help you buy this house because it really means a lot to me. The American dream is buying a home, and I want to be part of that for you while I'm still alive. Can see the house, can see my grandchildren enjoy it, whatever the case may be. So all of that's part of that legacy conversation, and that's it's very, very personal. It's what it means to you is what matters here. And if you want our help, we're obviously glad to step in and do that. The message then today is to find as many ways as we can to shore up the plan so that you feel like you can live free, that you can live with a lot of freedom in your spending when you retire. Whatever we can do today while you're still working, that's great. If you're already retired, it's a good time to take a re-examination of, am I on track? Could I actually be spending more, doing more? And especially again, why you still feel good about that. And so defining those priorities, balancing that today and tomorrow, I think is really important. I want you to live abundantly now. I know for many of you, you hear me say that and you're like, Matt, you don't understand. I worry about this and I worry about that. I understand. I can think from my own personal life of, a day when I'm not running PrairieFire and I'm spending off the portfolio and seeing that balance go down. That would be hard. That's mentally a challenge. So it's not as if I'm naive to that. I've seen in practice many cases where we really can live abundantly now, and there is room in the plan. And even if those balances begin to change in a way that doesn't feel that good, that you're still going to be fine. And if we can offer that reassurance, great. But whatever we can do to plan it beforehand or, do a mid-course correction, whatever the case may be, we'd love to see you live as best you can with a lot of dignity for all these resources that you've taken the time and the hard work to save for. And then planning best we can for both today and tomorrow. So takeaways then, examine your mindset. Is it where you'd like it to be, or do you have concerns maybe that need to be wrestled with and that we might be able to help with? That spending plan, of course, is something that we show to everybody in your cash flow plan every time we meet. It's something that we talk about all along. Planning for surprises. We can build into your plan. In my case, it's weddings and potentially maybe grandchildren. All these kind of things are surprises out there. If you want to pay for a grandchild's college, if you are really thinking about a second home, if you want to, just put $100,000 in the plan for some sort of healthcare shock. What happens when that goes on? We can do that. We can show you what happens with those surprises, and you might be surprised how little they impact the overall plan long term. But again, we can do a little bit of upfront work there. So if that happens, you're like, oh man, well, we already looked at that, and I know I'm going to be okay. Managing taxes is huge. I think that's a big overlooked area where we can definitely help and definitely do a lot of things both early, during, and while we're retired that can minimize that tax bill. And then that legacy piece, clarifying how you want that to look and work. All right, everybody. Well, I thank you so much for joining us here today. Like I said, I have all these books I read about retirement, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and do a lot of things with the retirement genre. I'm always wanting to learn, wanting to be the best that we can to give advice around Social Security, Medicare, spending, the guardrails, all of that system. But I found a quote. This book, many of you have heard me recommend, called The New Retirement Mentality by Mitch Anthony. And it's a much more of a lifestyle book than a spending, how much to put in a Roth IRA kind of book. It's more about how do we live big. And I want to just read this real quick paragraph, if you don't mind. Age has nothing to do with it. What you bring to the game and how long you want to play it is what matters. There's nothing wrong with going from being a starting player to a supporting player in the next phase of life, as long as you are somehow in some way invested in the game of life. If you have the need to feel useful, don't get trapped into a life that feels useless to you. Everyone is wired differently in this respect. Follow your own wiring and not the diagram that the world at large advises for you. You won't be disappointed and you won't be bored. I love the fact that we get to work with so many pre and current retirees, and I see how great you're living in retirement. It's so fun to hear the stories of the trips and the things that we do with the grandkids, the way that we support our families, the new friendships that we've made, the hobbies that are being pursued. It's so cool. It's so great to be a part of all that. So, yeah, thank you all today for being here. I always appreciate your attention, and I'm hopeful that the topics that we bring are timely and helpful in as many ways possible. If there's any questions, I don't see any in the chat. I'll give you maybe just a second here. You know where to find me. Any of you that are on today that want to learn more, talk about this in your own specific situation, I hope that you'll reach out. I hope we'll be getting to see everybody soon. We are planning a holiday gathering, so be looking for your mailboxes for invitations to that coming up. And yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight. We'll talk to everybody real soon. Thanks.